Welcome to the Hunt Backcountry podcast. This is episode number 530, and our guest today is Brigham from Outdoor Vitals. As you'll hear about, Brigham recently joined us on a death hike recap of this year's death hike, but he's back on this episode about something entirely different, and that is a clothing project that we have been working on with Brigham and Tayson and the other guys at Outdoor Vitals for really over 2 years at this point. We tell the entire backstory of this project, how it came together, why it came together, the pieces that are included, and ultimately the pieces that are going to be released here over the next couple of months. We break down each of the 3 pieces in this line, and I will leave timestamps for the discussions around those 3 pieces. So if you want to skip ahead for any reason and hear about the puffy versus the active mid layer versus the pants, you can do that. This is a long conversation. We go in depth on as many aspects of this as we could within a reasonable time frame and answer a lot of the questions that you guys have been asking. If you haven't seen these pieces or heard Steve and I talk about them on the podcast, you can kind of get some glimpses of them in the Experience Project hunt films. In all those hunts, we were wearing some of the pieces that you will hear us discuss today, although a caveat, colors and some details did change. Those were prototypes that we were using this past fall, as well as numerous other guys that were testing apparel as well. Again, we'll cover all that. As always, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback for us, be sure to let us know. It'd be good to hear from you. Just send an email to podcast@exomountaingear.com. Right now, let's dive right into this conversation with Brigham. Well, Brigham, welcome back. Last time you were on the podcast, it was post death hike and you crushing the rim to rim to rim double, the R5. So back for different reasons today. If folks didn't hear that death hike podcast, which was pretty recent and even more relevant to our conversation today, go ahead and give them an intro for who you are and what you do at Outdoor Vitals.
Sure. Brigham Crane. I've been at Outdoor Vitals for about 6 years. I just handle all the product design and development and just kind of all the parts and pieces of that. It's something I really enjoy and kind of arrived to in a very calculated and deliberate way, just because I want to be involved with things that I actually like doing. And I guess that's kind of the relevant information about myself with what we're doing. But I'm definitely appreciative and glad to know you guys and to be back talking about some things on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm sure a little bit excited because there's been so much behind the scenes for like 2 years at this point, and now we're actually finally talking a little bit more publicly and detailed about things. Steve, I'll ask you as we go into this conversation to give like the initial background in terms of how this came about, why this came about, and why you and I, or you and I as EXO, I guess, have been involved in this.
How far does it go back, Brigham? 2023? Yeah. Early
Yeah,
2023?
something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I know I
So-
have prototypes and was sending Brigham notes in March of 2023, and that's like actually testing stuff.
Oh, really? So it goes back to 2022?
Yeah, to some extent, conversationally, I think so.
I mean,
Yeah.
the initial, like, hey, can we do this? Yeah. Interesting. Man, time flies. For me, obviously, like if you watch the Experience Project or something like that, like tell how obsessive we are about gear. Obviously, with the podcast, we're making recommendations and saying what we use, and I'll say as simple as clothing can be, uh, or, yeah, from my perspective. Brigham, you probably argue differently. It was like I still hadn't found the perfect hunting pant, and it was like I had a very simple, basic checklist of, like lightweight, comfortable, some good stretch to it, obviously very durable, hip vents, and a built-in belt, and just functional. I mean, first and foremost, a pant has to be like just comfortable to wear. The fit has to be dialed in, and like to up to that point, the Prana Stretch Zion was like a pant that, was like $80, $90, something like that, and checked almost all those boxes with the exception of hip vents and your supporting um, a non-hunting. I mean, they'd gotten bought out by Columbia, and so I was just sick of one. I wanted the pant to exist that I would, if I was to sit down and napkin sketch my perfect hunting pant, I wanted that to exist. We had gotten to know Brigham and Tayson at Outdoor Vitals. They'd been doing death hikes with us and become industry friends, and so I just simply reached out to Brigham one day and said, "Hey, if I napkin sketch some designs, like, could we kind of collaborate on this and design these and put these pieces on the market?" And I want nothing to do with it other than help design it and then just say, "Hey, this exists. Go, like, here's some awesome pair of pants. Go buy them." And that started the project, and we ended up doing the mid layer and the puffy jacket and got a sun hoodie in the works. And yeah, everything's been obviously, it's been a process here of a couple of years, and but everything's turned out fantastic. Like, kudos to you, Brigham. The designs have been absolutely dialed in.
Well, I enjoy it. I don't like to. I'm not going to take credit for anything, but I mean, it's always nice when there's kind of a third party that kind of says, "Hey, this is what we want," and um, it's very relatable for me. I mean,
Mm.
us both being like the end users, that makes it really easy because you care. Like, you actually care what the end result is because me and you and the three of us and Tayson as well. Like, we're all the people that are going to end up using this, for things that we really care about. So,
hmm And another thing I liked about you guys is very similar to EXO. You're a small, direct-to-consumer company producing like really good quality pieces at a price that isn't outrageous. Like, I mean, you truly are. A couple companies have, I'll just pick on First Light. They went direct to consumer for a while, and it was supposed to be savings, and that didn't actually happen. Like, things got like $10 cheaper or something like that. Where you guys are direct to consumer, the quality's fantastic. I don't know what you can say about what factories you use, but I'll just say that they are produced in the same factories as the best quality stuff. This is the quality of the stuff's fantastic, um, and uh, and the people are paying. I guess we'll get into pricing. I don't even know where the final pricing came at, but I mean, these pieces are probably, what would you say, 30% cheaper than like a comparable item from another company?
I, yeah, it probably depending on which piece it is. But I mean, it's going to be something around that plus or minus.
Yeah.
This started with pants, Steve, and it expanded into, as you said, a mid layer and a puffy. I guess from both of your perspectives, and I have my perspectives as well, but like, why those three pieces?
Well, they're the piece that's on every single hunt. The pant was the one in particular that, like me with shoes, like I had just not, outside of Prana, I hadn't found anything that I really liked. I mean, there's other stuff that was okay, but nothing that was just perfect. Um, and so that was and pants are, you know, um, for me, my philosophy on pants is that I want a lightweight, thin pair that's quick drying, that's comfortable, tough, durable, like all the things we talked about. And then when it gets colder, I just simply wear long johns. Other people like to switch to a thicker, warmer pant, and I think that's kind of backwards thinking. And that just you just add a long john, and then you've got that layer, you've got that flexibility. Because I mean, September, October, November, you can have really hot afternoons that you don't want that thick, heavy pant on. So other people are like anti long johns, but my philosophy is a lightweight, thin pant, and then just throw long johns on when it gets cold.
And by long johns, you mean fishnets.
And fishnet stockings, yeah. Be a
Let's
man,
see.
use your mouth.
All the inside jokes. Um, yeah, so I guess super high level recap. So what we're gonna do is we're going to get into each piece and take a deep dive, talk about we can all weigh in on our thoughts on what that piece should have been, some of what we tried, some of what we changed, specs in terms of what it ended up being, etc. So that's to come. But I do want to kind of upfront give people a timeline and cut to the chase there. So as we said, this conversation started, I don't know, late 2022, early 2023. We were testing stuff 2023 in the winter and spring. I know all the main fall hunting season 2023. We were testing all three pieces and then expanded testing in 2024, which some of you guys, as Steve mentioned, like may have seen on the experience projects, all those hunt films. But that was more than just us at that point. Internally, all this testing was the four of us. So me, Steve, Tayson, Brigham from Outdoor Vitals, and some other OV employees. Then in 2024, expanded that to uh, I don't know how many guys that ended up being Brigham, but quite a few guys who were using everything in the field for 2024 have made a bunch of revisions along the way, and some of that's just been fine tuning and trying different options. And so we're at the point now to give people the most relevant timeline, Brigham, a big picture of what's coming. So as this podcast comes out in June of 2025, what do the next, call it couple months look like to let people know right up front before we talk about the pieces in terms of information, pre-orders, orders, shipping, all that good stuff? Let's give that to them up front.
Yeah. Okay. So pants, mid layer, puffy jacket. Those are all basically in the manufacturing process, like right now. So there's some fabrics are like actually being woven as we speak. Some may be getting dyed right now. Some may be getting cut into pattern pieces right now. All that's taking place right now. And then production for all of them will finish, depending on the piece, between like the 1st of August and like the third week of August. We did have a fabric delay, like the fabric is taking longer to weave and dye for one of the pieces. So that's added a little bit of a delay in terms of when we're going to deliver to customers. But let's see, we're going to be kind of air shipping a chunk of everything as soon as production finishes, like that third week of August. And that takes maybe 7 to 10 days to get here. So I think realistically, we're looking at the first week of September that we're actually going to be able to fulfill orders, ship out to our customers, anybody ordering. It's not exactly finalized how much of a kind of pre-order we want to do, but we do want to allow people to basically lock in what they want, right? So it's kind of like a pre-order situation. So prior to us shipping orders out to customers, we're going to have we'll have all the information on the website and the ability for people to place their order, get their size and color locked in, so that as soon as that shipment hits our warehouse, that's our warehouse and the office at the same place. So as soon as we get it, it's going to keep shipping out as fast as possible. I would kind of get for a ballpark for pre-orders. I think maybe we're going to give like a week or two to do that. Honestly, it would be great if there was feedback from people that can just email they can honestly just email me. We probably just link my email address to the podcast page. But if there's enough feedback that says like, hey, I'll pre-order 3 weeks in advance, then we might tweak that. But that's what we're looking at, the ability to kind of pre-order a little bit and get your size and color locked in. And then around the first week of September, we'll ship them out as fast as possible. We do have an email list that we're kind of disseminating so people can sign up for email notifications, whether that's just to be notified when the pre-order is open. Probably be notified of, as soon as they hit the warehouse, as soon as we're shipping. And then there'll be a discount associated with your email when you sign up with that email opt-in or like a sign up link. But is that adequate?
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, I would say
Okay.
in the short term, if people hear this conversation, have any interest and want info on pre-ordering and that discount you mentioned, as you said, we'll just point people to that email list. That way, whenever you guys do decide to turn on the pre-orders or share any other updates or anything like that, it's just going to go out to anyone who signed up. So that's a good first step. And yeah, I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, things would be shipping earlier for some folks and hunts who have early stuff, but it's also good to get this out there when we can and not push it a whole nother season for sure. And that's something that I know Steve and I have talked a bit about in doing this really for the last 2+ years with you, is just better insight into operations, what goes into manufacturing with apparel, what goes into prototyping, what goes into fabrics, what goes into colors and all that stuff. And I mean, obviously we're involved with creating our packs, but it's such a different world to be working with clothing factories. So, as usual, when you learn about anything, Steve, we just talked on a Monday Minute about buckles, right? Like you visited our buckle manufacturer, and it's like, hey, there's way more to this than I ever would have anticipated. It's been enlightening for us to see behind the scenes a little bit on the apparel side.
Mm. One thing I wanted to add, a note that popped in my head too when you're talking about like why the project. I have my selfish reason of like I just wanted these pants and these pieces to exist, and then the other side, obviously, we're recommending a lot of gear, and I really enjoy when I can recommending not only good products but good people, good companies, and Outdoor Vitals is one of those, right? Like sometimes we can't. Sometimes it's a water filter made by Katadyn, and we don't know a lick about them. But in the hunting industry, we get to see behind the curtain of other companies, and so many have been bought out and sold and owned by investment groups and things like that, that I really love when that that perfect marriage exists of a great product and a great company that we know the people behind it. They're just EXO is like to me, that's how we've created the company, create great products and be just a good company, good people, good customer service, and Outdoor Vitals is one of those. So it was a perfect fit when I first reached out about that project. Was hey, not only can they make awesome pieces specifically catered for us as hunters, but they're also just a great company to work with and somebody I truly want to support.
Yeah. And you've said this, but just to say it super explicitly as well, in case people didn't hear it, there's zero financial anything involved.
No,
We're not doing this because we're making 10% or anything under the table or what have you. Like as you said, Steve, the origin of the project is here's some gear that we want. Here's some people who can make it, and they are also great people. So it's just a super cool fit, and that's pretty much all there is to it.
yeah, that's
I'd like to kind of reciprocate on that from my end, for similarly, I'd like to echo the things back your direction as well. So like, I personally, I've been an EXO customer predating my time at Outdoor Vitals, like whenever the K2 came out. I followed EXO from the origins, like from the like very beginning process on rock slide. I remember Steve like asking about what volume type pack and all of this, and like I've always been an EXO follower / customer since the K2, and my personal experience with EXO has been nothing but positive. And then as somebody that like, I can, I see the first EXO pack that I get and recognize the thought processes that went into it and how it's made and how it works for me. Like, because that's really all that matters, is like how it works for me. And then just following along with you guys, and then starting, working here at Outdoor Vitals and interacting with you even more, to be, I would say it's a great pairing because, honestly, Steve, like when you called me about this, I had no idea what you were wanting to talk about, but as soon as you started talking about it, I listened, and all I needed to do is like wait for the slight pause before I said, yes, let's do it now. Because it's just a no-brainer, just because of the way you guys operate, who you are as people, as a company, and that really mattered to me. It really matters to me, to us, to kind of, I say the word partner up because it's a relatable word, but like Mark pointed out, this is not like from the outside in, a person could not look at this and call this a business partnership, because where's the transaction, right? Like there is no transaction. And I think that's incredibly valuable to me. And I don't know, I just can't appreciate it enough. And I'd be remiss to not express that, and hope that everybody listening can pick up on that. Like it's been like, in my opinion, like for me, like a privilege to work with you guys and do this because of your value system and our value system and the alignment there. And it is very uncommon in outdoor industry, hunting industry, backpacking industry for there to be two businesses that collaborate without a transaction of some sort. That's very uncommon. And so that's, I just appreciate it that much more.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, let's dive into the fun stuff. Let's do the puffy first. For each item, I kind of want to go through purpose, fit, features, materials, specs. We can talk about maybe revisions and feedback we made over the life of the piece and our testing, and then obviously final product stuff in terms of name, and then Brigham. I don't even know if, to show the lack of transactional stuff, I don't know if you have pricing. I don't know if you have all that stuff, but basically any final details we can share, we'll share it.
Yeah.
I'll let you kick it off. Even though for each of these pieces, all of us had a conversation on all of them and said, hey, here's what I want. Here's what I want. Here's what we see for a puffy jacket, right? Because there's a million puffy jackets on the market. If you were to summarize it, Brigham, what would you say is kind of the use case, purpose of this piece from a high level? And then we can maybe break that into comparisons, temperature ranges, things of that nature with more detail.
Yeah. I mean, I see the puffy that we're releasing. So it's called the Vantage Alpine jacket. It, like the kind of the way Steve put it, was like, we just want like a kind of this 16-ounce puffy. And well, like that brackets it in quite a bit. But like, to me, I see it as like really the puffy that covers a lot of bases. Like it covers a lot of hunts. I archery hunt a lot. So oftentimes I'm in the mountains in August, and like it might be overkill for that, but it's not going to kill me if that's the only puffy that I have and that's what I take. Because honestly, archery hunting, I almost never even put something on, more than like a mid layer. So, but if I'm going to have a puffy, then this puffy covers a lot of seasons, like a lot of hunting conditions. And so it's simple in that way. I see it as being very simple because we don't have to think about changing a puffy out, because it's September 17th versus October 12th, or the 31st of October, and it, yeah, that's kind of the way I see it. It's about, it's about a 16-ounce puffy that we tried to put a lot of down into, and make very usable across a wide range of conditions.
Yeah, for me, I had done a puffy deep dive. I wonder when that would have been, 18, 19, something like that. Where I was just obsessed with finding like the lightest, warmest puffy I possibly could. And the one I read forever was like called a company called Stellar out of like Switzerland, and they had a really awesome one. And then just like started understanding about like box construction versus sewn through construction and what makes a puffy warm and not. And then I just kind of came to me, they kind of got broken down into two categories. There was like very lightweight, like what you'd maybe call like a September puffy that's like a 10 to 12 ounces. And then there wasn't a bunch in that middle 16-ounce range. And then you jumped up to puffies that were in the 20s, 21, 22, and like very, very warm and really like only good for like this got to be cold. Like it's way too warm of a puffy for just 30 degrees on a chilly September morning or even into October. And so there's like but the lightweight puffies, my lightweight ultra light side gear, you know, part of me was like I would pack them and then freeze my ass off on a hunt, like just be shivering the whole time, like, oh, I need more than this. And then there's the other side of I kind of miss just having the simplicity of like, here's four pieces I take with me on every single hunt. I don't have to think like same pants, same base layer, same mid layer, same puffy, whether it's August 30th or November 2nd, like these pieces are going to carry me through everything. And the simplicity of that is, I don't know, it's hard. It's hard to tangibly put like how much easier it makes packing for you. But if you have four pieces that are just dialed in, and basically the only thing I'm adding as it gets colder is long johns, maybe warmer socks, beanie, and gloves. It makes the hunting, the gear side of that very, very simple. So yeah, I just came to the conclusion that I think a 16-ounce puffy, basically, I mean, all the fabrics. Brigham, you obviously talk way more about this than I can, but you're looking at like 15D, 20D, 30D fabrics that, they're all I mean, none of them are like what you would ever call durable. Like, you could take a
Mhm.
knife and just cut them. I mean, it's amazing actually to me when you just take a piece of flat 30D fabric or 15D fabric. I mean, you take a piece of scissors and cut little half-inch slit in that, and you could just tear that thing like a hot knife through butter. They're not tough at all. But somehow when you're wearing them, I mean, yeah, you get little holes and tears over here and there, but not a lot. So anyways, like somewhat of a tough face fabric, but you don't need to go overkill. They're not tough inherently, and just put as much downfill as we possibly can in there with some type of, if we could, box construction. So that in a box construction is where, um, I guess Brigham, you obviously talk more about this, but it's not, you don't have stitch lines sewing through where they're, obviously in a down jacket, there could be a pocket of down, and then the stitch line is running like sandwiching both sides of the fabric together. So at that point, there's no warmth. There's zero warmth right there. And then you move over into the next kind of chamber that holds the down. Where box construction it's like a sleeping bag where there's internal baffles in there that are, it's basically consistent all the way across. And that was in that basically fabric that you guys are a part of developing, I believe, where it's kind of welded together, and you get a little bit of that effect, especially with kind of the offset baffles that we ended up doing. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few things there. Yeah, because you're correct on like the sewn through versus kind of the boxed baffle. They both use sewing to create the down chamber, but yeah, what we did was basically what you describe, where it's kind of neither. A box baffle puffy has the ability to create so much room that you can just pack tons of down in there, just like a sleeping bag. And then a traditional puffy jacket that is very prevalent out there, they basically cut double pattern pieces for everything. So the inside fabric and the outside fabric, they cut those pattern pieces to match, and then they either stitch them across to make these sewing or these down chambers, and then they blow the down in, and the spaces are made by sewing the upper layer and the inner layer together. So the fabric we use, it's woven as a single fabric that has two layers that basically intersect each other at a certain offset interval. So it creates down chambers without having to stitch through two layers of fabric. And that it just adds wind resistance, water resistance, and dust resistance. So yeah, that's what we use. And we really like that fabric because because of the wind resistance. I mean, there's always like lab tests that we get done and things like this. So it's in a lab test environment, it's 40% more wind resistant than stitched through than a jacket that's stitched through. And it's 20% more water resistant, and it's like all pretty obvious things. It's like instead of punching a bunch of holes through your jacket, there are no holes punched through it. So it's going to be a little more wind and water resistant, definitely more dust resistant. It's going to be just more durable by the nature of there aren't 15,000 holes in the jacket. So that's what we use. It's a 15D nylon. So yeah.
And then I think I forgot to in my mind, when I'm using a puffy, it's never active. I mean, maybe if it's real cold in the morning and you just need to wear it for the first half a mile of hiking. But you're pretty much if you're active, you're taking that thing off. So there's not really the idea of a lightweight puffy is nice in the pack, but actual and practical use, when I'm wearing a puffy, I just want to be warm. And it doesn't have to be, it could just be 50 degrees outside in the evening on a September 10th hunt, and you're just sitting up on a ridge glassing, and you put that on, and you're just nice and cozy. You're never like too warm in that. And so that's where that 16 ounce kind of came from it's like plenty of warmth for the late season stuff, which these jackets are. I'm actually excited for the final production ones because they're kind of a blend of the last samples and the original ones, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Because the original ones were stupid warm. We got those right when we went to Kodiak. And it was a really cold, windy hunt. But I came back. I was like, these performance-wise, those original jackets were fantastic, but they were black because that was the color and that you had available, and they were shiny. And I went to you, I'm like, man, aesthetically, I don't think people would buy these.
Yeah.
We needed to kind of clean these up a little bit. And then obviously you went back and figured out how to get the fabric into like a matte color and kind of clean that up. And that's a tricky part of design is performance is one thing, but at the end of the day, people, like whether it's their pack or their clothes, they want it to look good. And you have to balance some aesthetic back into it.
Yeah. It's a tough thing to balance. I mean, because my personal belief, our company kind of philosophy is like, the performance first is like first priority. Like performance is the first priority that has to be there. And then we try to address everything else as best we can. But because you're right. Like that shiny fabric had performance qualities are there, but it was, that was one where we had to make some tweaks to how it looked.
I would say let's talk features a little bit, but one thing with this puffy, going back to we want a 16 ounce, roughly 16 ounce size large, warm as possible. To get that warm as possible, we're trying to maximize how much fill we can get in this thing for the weight. And that comes with our own philosophy of simplicity, but obviously if we're trying to maximize warmth for weight, we're also going to take things out. So going back to everything we said about warmth for weight to what we said about being active and moving a puffy, there's puffy jackets out there with pit zips. I think Outdoor Vitals has made some. There's puffy jackets with this feature and that feature and whatever. This puffy is going to be very simple and streamlined and just be performance oriented, not feature oriented, I would say. But does anything from that kind of feature? I mean, we talked about obviously the technology. We talk about the baffle structure, the woven nature of that. Before we just jump into what is the down, what is the fill, the type, and how much, is there anything you want to touch on, Brigham, in terms of like features, I guess?
Um, I can list them really quick, but before I do that, I think it's probably good to kind of to comment on what the the reality of any product. Doesn't matter what it is. Every product that we use, daily life, hunting life, whatever it is, like has compromises. There is no such thing as something that does everything. And so, when we're making a puffy, we make decisions based on, we kind of just said, like, performance first, like the first how it performs and functions, and then we try to accommodate as many things as possible. But um, and then the other kind of concept to be aware of is that um, we're not always necessarily starting a product design um, with like a one sentence like end goal of make the best fill in the blank, right? Like, because the best fill in the blank sucks for a lot of people. Um, and so everything, it's just good to just kind of understand that everything is prioritized based on what we want in something, and then we go from there, always like with the pinnacle being the performance of the piece. So like you mentioned, this, like a puffy could be 16 ounces and be drastically different than what we ended up with. It could be 16 ounces because we've got pit zips and we've got like cell phone pocket, a reed call pocket. We've got all kinds of like things and features in there, and that's taken up some of that 16 ounces. Well, if we want a simple puffy that's just easy to use and we don't have to think about, we want that 16 ounces to be like performance focused. So we want to be able to put more down in it versus a zipper. So when we do put two hand pockets in there, they're kind of just to be functional. Like, we want the minimal amount of pockets. So we have in this puffy, we've got just two pockets that are in the very, very common placement. And that's the only actual zippered pockets on the puffy. There's no pit zips, but the adjustability that we did include affects the performance and the heat retention. So having a draw cord hem, so we're not losing heat out the bottom of the puffy. So we've got that. So it's got two draw cords at the hem that you can cinch up the bottom of the jacket, and then it's a two-way adjustable hood, so you can cinch up the face opening and then also kind of cinch up behind the head so the hood kind of stays put where we want it. And those are features that affect the warmth of the jacket. And then with those features included, then it's like, okay, now all we need to do is just put as much down in it as we can. So and that's kind of how we approached it. And so we ended up with like on a size large, I do everything in grams, but it's about like 7.5, maybe a little more ounces of down. It's 215 grams of 850 filled down.
Yeah, just to make a comparison, and this is like a comparison just based on my experience, not saying anything, but an Alps hooded down jacket from Canis, which is a jacket I over the years have used and appreciated, and it kind of hits that metal range. It's in a large, it's pushing 18 ounces and has 2.5 less ounces of down fill. So it's heavier by a couple ounces with more than 2 ounces less down fill, which means it's gonna be a little bit less warm. But just to illustrate, it has a chest pocket. It has cordura reinforcements at the cuffs. It's gonna have fleece lining on the neck. Like, it has all these things, and I don't think people realize sometimes that all of that is weight that doesn't, like, it may go to comfort in the sense that like, ooh, that fleece lining feels kind of good, but it's not going to like performance oriented warmth to weight ratio stuff. Again, it's a cool piece. I'm just trying to draw a comparison of we tried to strip away all these things and just make this jacket as warm as possible. And really, any features like you mentioned, being able to adjust the hem and the hood and all that, even that's performance oriented because you really want to seal that system down and make it fit you well.
Yeah,
Hmm.
there was definitely a priority of for me it's been an area, and you watch someone do their 5 day gear video, clothing and even ounce counters, clothing's something that just kind of slips through the cracks. People aren't concerned about the weight of their pants or their mid layer or their puffy. I mean, I wasn't for a lot of years. It was just kind of, it was what it was. I didn't even think about it. So it wasn't a tent that I could go buy something that was 2 pounds versus 4 pounds. You just didn't really like weigh. It was actually really uncommon 10 plus years ago to even have weights listed. They just said puffy jacket or ultralight puffy jacket, but there's never a weight listed. Definitely never a weight listed with pants, anything like that. So once I started looking at weights of fabrics, and because sometimes even it's on your body, it's still weight that you're carrying around there in the mountains. So definitely a priority of like performance, and that performance on like how it's on your body, how is it durable, is it comfortable, is it stretchy, is it warm, and then keep the weight to a minimum. So lack of features. I mean, I didn't even want like a cargo pocket on the pants at first. You put that in there because you're like, I think people are gonna want this. But for me, that's just like extra weight, extra bulk, an area that it's not going to breathe. Like there was some, I can't remember what it was. I think it was First Light had some pants a couple of years back that was like they kind of marketed as like lightweight, breathable, but they had so many pockets that there was like 3 or 4 layers of fabric like at your thighs, between
Stacked
a
on
cargo
top of each
pocket.
other.
They're stacked on top of each other. It was like these are really hot pants. Even though like the actual fabric like down by where it was just a single layer was kind of, it wasn't thick by any means. It wasn't ultralight, but they made them pretty hot pants. So to me, I just wanted like bare minimum pockets, and I just don't. I'm not a fan of like somebody on Rockslide was like, oh, you need like pockets on both sides or something. I know I was joking on a Monday Minute, like I want 18 pockets on my pants. Like, what the hell are you carrying in your pants that you need that many pockets? If you're like everything should be like on your bino chest harness or in a hip belt pouch, and you shouldn't really need to put anything in your pant pockets. But it is nice to have that one there for like just random stuff when you need to put it there for a minute instead of taking your pack off.
A good way of kind of like describing it's like performance and what goes where. It's like if what if we all could mortgage a house for 0%? Like our it's like every penny we pay every month on our mortgage goes to equity, right? Um, but like what if I bought a house like 5 years ago and my interest rate was 2.5%, but now it's what, 5.5%? Well, it takes a lot, like your money goes farther the lower the interest rate. And so that's like with a down puffy, we want our money to go towards being warm.
Yeah.
We want it to go not towards kind of these ancillary conveniences that are like, oh, it's kind of nice to have this, it's kind of nice to have that. But in the end, I just want to pay off my mortgage. I just want to be warm. So I want my money to go towards warmth. And so for 16 ounces, I want those ounces to be down ounces, not adjustability ounces, not fabric ounces. I want them to be down because that's what keeps us warm.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And that goes back to my original request, 16 ounces with as much down as you can put in there. Oh,
So this begs the question, Brigham, what geek out on the down a little bit? One, we didn't go synthetic, which we can save a conversation for another day, I think. But there's obviously, as you said, fill power of down, which is one thing. This is,
Mm-hmm.
I think you said 850, right? But then
Yep,
not all down's the same either. Some listeners are gonna have more or less uh, experience with that, right? Like hydrophobic versus
sure.
this and that and all that. But get a little bit specific on what the type of down is that you guys are using.
Yeah, so this jacket uses Expedry down, and I don't want to call it a DWR or a water resistant down, because that really is not what it is. It is closer to a non-treated, non-DWR down than it is to a DWR down, or what people might recognize as what we would say hydrophobic down. So hydrophobic or DWR down has basically a chemical or some kind of treatment applied all over the down. It covers the entire surface of the down. Think of it as you're taking a down cluster and you're spray painting it hunter orange. But it's not spray paint. So eventually it just washes out. But while the spray paint is on there, it helps the down not absorb water or as much water, but it's still on there. That's like a high level description of what DWR treated down is. There's different wax based, chemical based, but that's DWR down. So extra dry down is not that at all. There's nothing sprayed on or washed on. There's nothing that completely covers or encapsulates the fibers of the down structure. All it is it's like nanoparticles of gold molecules that is permanently embedded in the down structure, because it's first the nanoparticles of gold are mixed in with like very, very clean water that has it's got nothing in it. It's like the cleanest water that can be made, in terms of other minerals and things like that. But all it means is the down is washed in this water that's got gold molecules in it. The gold molecules permanently embed in the little microscopic cracks and crevices of a down plume, and they don't wash out. We're talking like 99.9% retention after 100 wash cycles. And all the gold does is it creates like a vibration around itself. So it's these down particles are all throughout the down, and so they're constantly in this state of unrest, vibrating and shaking, and that doesn't allow water to permanently adhere to it. If you force it to failure, like in a lab scenario, it immediately is in a state of drying itself out because of this vibration that occurs all around it. So that's what extra dry down is, and we use it because we've been using it in our top quilts for a couple of years now, with great results. And again, kind of going back to like the use case for a puffy is, the puffy is for when we're just sitting there glassing. We're sitting there eating our meal before we get in our top quilt at night, right? Like that's it. We're not trying to design a waterproof puffy. Like it's just supposed to keep us warm while we're sitting there. So we didn't really want to use any other kind of chemical treated down. We just want like a down that we have found to work very well in terms of drying itself out, staying dry. So yeah, it's kind of it's a deep dive into the down thing, but yeah.
Yeah. And just to clarify too, for people who don't, again, you mentioned this, but to call it out, Outdoor Vitals isn't developing this. You guys aren't washing
Correct.
down with gold. Down
Correct.
is supplied through suppliers. You guys aren't the only ones using Expedry. You're not the only ones who say it works well. Like if you start looking, and I can even leave a link to like Allied and their research, but there's a lot of high-end pieces, I would say, using this, Phil.
Yeah, we've been happy with it, and again, it's closer to just a natural untreated down than it is to anything else. I mean, because that's really that's really what it is with the additional presence of these nanoparticulates of gold.
Hmm. Have you
What
guys done your own internal testing to see if you see a difference between that and treated down?
And treated down. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, I would just call it just field testing.
Yeah.
What we see is just like um, repeated days, um, just way more repeatable loft, um,
Hmm.
where it, uh, especially on sleeping bags, like the foot box area, that
Uh-huh.
your feet are damp because you just took them out of the socks you've been wearing all day, and um, it's very evident like morning 3, 4, 5, where like the footbox area just lofts up very well overnight. It's just like day after day, it just repeatedly just regains all its loft, and we've been impressed with it.
Hmm.
do you have either final price or rough price point for this piece?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you a range. I mean,
Okay.
because we haven't exactly nailed down like what's going to be on the website, but it's going to be like 260 to maybe on the highest end, like 280, 285, but I would expect it. I would plan on it being closer to that 260 price range.
And then how about colors? This is two, three colors for the puffy.
We got three colors in the puffy. So we've got a black. It's kind of like a charcoal black. I wouldn't call it like I don't know, jet black. It's not the darkest black, but it's anyway. So we got a black, and then we've got um, it's called the color is called Chimera. It's just kind of like a gray, like a slightly darker gray that's got a little bit of kind of a green in it. It's a really good looking color. And then we've got like a kind of an olive green. So those are three colors, yeah. So kind of
Sweet.
that dark grayish green, black, and then olive.
Is that consistent throughout the mid layer and pants as well?
Uh, no, I think the only consistent color is well, not even that. We have olive in the mid layer. We have kind of a darker olive in the pants,
Okay.
and then, but yeah, they're pretty unique for each piece.
Hmm.
I know we could keep talking about the puffy, but also I want to move the conversation along. That said, anything you don't want to leave unsaid, Brigham, on the puffy? I feel like we covered it pretty well.
No, I think I'm good.
Cool. Let's do mid layer next. This is I hesitate to call it my favorite piece, but I think I would. It's also maybe yeah, I don't know. I just absolutely love this mid layer. Let's do the same thing. First, start with you, Brigham. Big picture. What is this piece? Use case, etc. 30,000 foot view.
Um, yeah, it's 30,000 foot view. That's tough. Okay, so um, really, I just want it to be something to just keep you just warm enough when your sun hoodie or base layer won't do. Like that's it. Um, but you're going to be moving off and on or all day. If you have any activity and it's just too cold to be wearing a mid layer or a base layer, then we want you to put this on and leave it on. So if that's archery and it's warm and this is all you pack to keep warm for the last, you know, 30 minutes of daylight, then great. But if it's middle of November and it's windy, it's just too cold to just be hiking in a sun hoodie, because whether you hike for 20 minutes and then sit in glass for 3 hours and then move, um, like we want you to just put this on and leave it on, like not have to take it off because it gives you just enough body heat, but it breathes exceptionally well. so that you don't have to take it off when you move. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to do 30,000 foot, but that's probably how I'd say.
Cool. So the term active mid layer or even active insulation, which I think are two different things, but anyway, active mid layer has become kind of popular. It is an area I feel like in the last 5 years there's been advancements in, which is cool. There's still a lot of, I think, marketing that doesn't match the claim, meaning pieces that are marketed or claimed to be active mid layers that don't fill that role well. This piece, as you just said, it lives up to that name. It's what I would call it, and yeah, it's kind of my favorite thing. If people are, let's go here. If people are unfamiliar with, I think everyone's probably familiar with grid fleece, which this piece has, which we can talk about, but this other type of insulation, um, which goes by different names depending on brands, etc. Tell us about the non-grid fleece portions of this, and then we can talk about maybe mapping that with grid fleece and kind of
Mhm.
the layout essentially of this piece.
Okay. So the non-grid fleece portions of this piece are a kind of like a 2-layer configuration. So there's a face fabric, and that's very simple. We can cover that real quick. It's a highly breathable, lightweight, nylon, smooth face fabric. Let's just get that out of the way. So it's about a 50 CFM breathability, so 50 cubic feet per minute breathability, 30D nylon, and that is very deliberate. Those numbers are very deliberate and by design. What's underneath it is the product we use is Primaloft Evolve 75 gram per square meter, and it is what Primaloft describes what they call their active insulation, and it's what I would describe or characterize as a high pile open knit fabric. So high pile, what that means is it's a very, if you think about fleece, it's kind of this fuzzy stuff, right? Well, how tall that fuzzy stuff, that's called pile. So the pile is kind of, think of like if the base of the fuzziness, like that's like the ground, how tall is the tree? So that's like the pile. So high pile means it's really lofty. It's got a lot of fibers extending outward from the base of the fabric. So pile is kind of how thick or how tall the fleece is, and open or loose knit describes the concentration of those of the pile, right? So it's like a dense forest would be a tight knit, a sparsely populated forest would be a loose knit, and then how tall the trees are, that's, low pile, mid pile, high pile. So I would describe this as a high pile open knit fabric, and that the reason is the open knit is to allow high breathability, the ability for heat and moisture to pass through it very easily. And then the pile, that affects how warm it is, because that loft is associated with heat retention, how much heat it allows to escape. And then especially when you put a face fabric over it, that kind of puts a ceiling on it that really slows down the excessive movement of air, which draws heat away from us. So yeah, Primaloft Evolve, it's very, I love talking about this stuff, and I can talk about like one thing for hours, but really it's very lofty, very loose and open, and that is to promote breathability, maintain heat.
So it's newer, it's exciting. You love talking about it. Why not use it throughout the entire piece?
So, this kind of goes back to where I talked about balance or priorities. So why not use it through the whole piece? if all we did was, let's say we used it everywhere and didn't put a face fabric on that, that would really bracket in the use case. That would really tighten up the breadth of applicability that we can use it for. If there is zero wind in the mountains all day long throughout all the hunting season, that would be awesome because that piece would be incredibly breathable, very incredibly lightweight, and very warm. The reality is we want more breadth of applicability. We want um, that piece to provide us warmth when the air is moving. And this can kind of go back into like some of the testing that we did with this piece. I don't remember every prototype that I sent either of you guys, but I personally prototyped 100% naked Polartec Alpha and Primaloft, like and or interchangeable, and it's it works in a set of conditions that rarely exists, and that is zero wind. So, I mean, I tested it like repeatedly day after day to try to find a use case where I could see it making sense, and I just couldn't ever make sense of it. Um, so that's kind of that's the why is that in the real world, wind exists in the mountains. It exists even more. So um, if we didn't map it and kind of put a lid on it with a face fabric in certain areas, it just would not be very usable.
Where does the grid fleece come into play? So
So
totally
grit.
different, because we talked about like, hey, here's Evolve, or as you said, Alpha. Those are two names of very similar technologies, essentially this type of fleece.
Hmm.
But we are also mixing in portions of that with this high breathable face fabric mentioned, but then also grid fleece.
Yeah. Um, the nice this kind of again comes back to like trying to balance priorities and balance objectives. Grid fleece is a great product. I still feel like it's underrated um, for what it is and where it really becomes applicable and valuable. And in the places that we used it is for low bulk areas where you really want it to just be thin and close up to the body, or areas where you don't want a lot of excess material because it still provides some warmth. It's just not as warm, but it is a very low pile. So, and it's more dense. So it's less. It's more durable in terms of it's not going to snag on things and rip. Things aren't attracted to it, but it's also very streamlined and smooth, and it's low bulk. So in areas like say an underarm or certain areas of the torso or sides of the torso where we could actually benefit from less heat, less heat retention, and maybe um, less bulk, then it's a great solution for kind of those applications. So, yeah, the grid fleece doesn't breathe. Well, it definitely doesn't breathe as well as like a naked Primaloft Evolve. It still breathes quite well, but really the main benefit and where we've mapped it is to just be low bulk and to just in those areas where we just want as little material as possible.
We went geeky out of the gate. Steve, what are your thoughts on this piece, things from testing, etc.?
Yeah, like you said, I hesitate to call it my favorite piece, because they're all awesome, but this one's particularly fantastic. It's just super versatile. I don't know if it's supposed to be worn like this, Brigham. You might say differently, but I love just wearing it next to skin.
Hmm.
It's like a base mid layer, like on a training hike or anything like that, where it's like, yeah, it's 30 degrees outside and I'd like something just a little bit warmer. Maybe there's a breeze. I want something warmer than just a sun hoodie. It's awesome next to skin, and then yeah, and then just pairing it with a any kind of base layer on, and then on that on top of it. Super versatile. It's crazy comfortable. That grid fleece is, feels like you're wearing a really soft fleece next to skin, and just awesome. And at a mid, layer. What the final weight come in at these? They're super light, right? 8, 9 ounces,
Yeah, I think it's close, probably closer to like 9.5.
9.5. Okay.
Yeah.
A mid layer is one when you're talking about weight that kind of varies a lot. Like the merino wool mid layers are going to be to get the warmth to separate it from a base layer. They're going to be 14 to 16 ounces. Um, and these being sub 10 is remarkable. I mean, there's a lot of weight savings there, and like more versatile than a merino layer, mid layer, merino wool, sorry, mid layer. Uh, just fantastic. I truly love the piece. They're gonna, you guys are gonna sell a ton of those things. They're just awesome. Um, yeah, and then just I guess from a functional standpoint, yeah, like I said, it's just something that for kind of regardless of the temperature, if I'm active, I'm wearing. So as I said, if I'm moving, the puffy comes off, and then I'm wearing this piece. And I think if, depending on your activity level, it could be 15 degrees or 50 degrees, and you're still going to be comfortable in this thing. It just has a super wide range where it performs really, really well.
Yeah. And just to echo that, I mean, I've used other pieces in the past that are they're not body mapped with this grid fleece. And what you said, Brigham, about the bulk is I think until you've experienced that, it's overlooked, right? Whether that's bulk under the pack hip belt or it's bulk built up, like you said, between the arms, and then you have this hiking motion, and there's just a lot more going on there. So I loved that, but also a lot of the other alpha or evolve pieces I used previously were in the heavier weights, and th- they were they were good active pieces, but in a much more narrow temperature range. And then when you're either too active, meaning like it's just a much higher output activity, or you're lightly to moderate active, but the temperature starts to climb a little bit. Which temperature's kind of changing frequently through the mountains. I just found myself having to take these pieces on and off more to be comfortable or not to over sweat. Whereas with this one, you can certainly exceed its capabilities, right? Like you're not going to go climb 5,000 feet in 75-degree sun. But over the real course of a hunt and seasons and days and variable conditions, this is a piece that's really easy to put on and to leave on, compared to a lot of other pieces that use the same technologies, the same type of insulation, but just at different weights or in different uh, levels of like application, like where it's at and how much of it there is.
Yeah. It's been under development for so long. It's like, I kind of forget some things, but, um, yeah, so I'll say, I don't know, more than 2 years ago, um, what I do, my job, I take it upon myself to be aware of my surroundings, right? Like I want to be aware of what people are demanding, what they're needing, what other people are doing, um, and I'm an end user as well, right? So a certain piece came out, I don't know, 2, 3 years ago, and I was immediately intrigued. Uh, the technology, the materials used, including Primaloft Evolve, they really appealed to me, and I started using and testing that piece. And what stood out to me immediately was that it was just too warm for too many conditions. And I immediately went to work on this piece, because that's how I felt. It was like, this is a bit of a missed opportunity because it's 20 degrees and I only have a 50-pound pack on and I am sweating profusely. Like 20 degrees with a pack and I'm sweating that much. Um, I just felt like it was too warm, and that I could get more usability out of it by mapping it a certain way, by changing certain materials. Um, and that's pretty soon after that, I think, is when I started making all kinds of prototypes and sending them to you and saying like, what do you think about this? Um, and that was very valuable because I took it from, okay, well, I'm going to try the whole spectrum of like 100% naked Polartec Alpha to like to the warmer versions of things, and so I felt like where we wanted to be and where we ended up was just to get as much usability, as much use case out of it as possible.
What go through again, guys will see the trend. We keep things simple and focused on performance, but in terms of features, I guess a rundown on what this piece has, what it is, how it's constructed in terms of hoods, zippers, other, I don't even know if you can call those features, but just kind of a,
Right,
for
right.
people who haven't seen it, a rundown of the piece.
Yeah. So it's got a hood, and I have seen this question. The hood is the body mapped polar Primaloft Evolve with the face fabric over it. So that's what the hood is made out of. I wouldn't call it quite a form-fitting hood, but I would call it like semi-form-fitting hood. We just want it to not flop around when we move our head. So it's shaped and sized accordingly for most people. It has a deep, more than half zip, I would say. It's probably like a 2/3 um, center front zipper, and that's because, again, if I want to wear this all day, I want the ability, if I have to, if I overexert myself, to just dump heat really fast. So it's got a really deep center front zipper, and then like that's it. I guess it does have thumb loops kind of built inside. They're very minimal, very small thumb loops, and those are really just for kind of layering on top of it, to prevent that sleeve from riding up if we're going to put on a rain jacket or a puffy over top. So in terms of features, that's pretty much it. And then, yeah, like the quick rundown of materials again. So it's body mapped. So some areas are grid fleece. So that's polyester grid fleece with a little bit of spandex in it. So it's got really good stretch and rebound. It's very smooth and low bulk. And then the other mapped areas are a 2-layer configuration with Primaloft Evolve 75 gram on the inside, and then a 30D breathable nylon face fabric that's got a really high breathability rating. And that really is kind of the piece. And how we mapped it, again, I mentioned the low bulk areas for grid fleece, and the other areas that use the Primaloft Evolve are kind of the areas around our core, or the areas of our core that we need to preserve body heat the most. So kind of upper torso, where our main vitals are, along the spine. Our spine has a huge artery in it. So along the spine and the back, and then kind of the outside of the arms. And mostly that comes from just testing in cold temperatures, high elevation with high wind, and realizing there's a need for some wind resistance on the outer arm, in terms of maintaining body heat.
What's the name, rough price point, colors, kind of the final product stuff?
Yeah, so it's the Pursuit Hybrid Fleece. Price point, so on the low end, I would say we might be just under 130. On the high end, like 145, like maybe 150 at the most. But yeah.
And 3 colors here?
Yeah, so we're gonna have gray, black, and olive. The gray is it's not quite as dark as the gray and the puffy. Just I would call it more of just like a middle in terms of light and dark. It's like right in the middle of that with gray.
The price on that compared to just say a Sitka Ambient, they're $280 versus this thing at $150. Like, and it's better design, better piece. Like the price on and performance of that piece is just incredible.
I'm gonna own one in every color, legitimately. I'm not just saying that.
It's a sweet piece. I again, like I care about this stuff because I get out there and use it. And so, luckily all of us were, between you guys and us, like we're very well aligned on what we like and don't like, and so that turned out great. And yeah, I really like this piece as well.
I don't want to forget to touch on this at the end, and this piece makes me think of it. In terms of sizing, and this piece makes me think of it because early prototypes were terrible in sizing, which I know you
Hmm.
won't mind sharing just because they were.
No,
And
happy
we
to.
fixed that, and I'm thrilled with how the sizing and cut of everything is. But in particular, and we can talk about the puffy as well, or this piece, and obviously we'll get to pants, which is a different sizing schema, but similar. There's obviously what small through XL or double XL, and then what about lengths? Because I know for me personally, that's always an issue I struggled with. And then you made me some stuff that was longer. Is there for the puffy in the mid layer? Yeah, I guess what is the overview on sizing options?
Okay, so start with the mid layer in standard height or standard size, small to 3XL. And then we'll have tall sizes from medium to XL. So medium tall, large tall, XL tall. And the puffy, I think it's the exact same.
Okay.
Small through 3XL, and then tall sizes, medium, large, and extra large.
Pants, I guess, is going back to the beginning of this long conversation where this started, Steve. You mentioned something pretty simple, streamlined, but hey, lightweight, drying, quick drying, hip zips, built-in belts, et cetera, et cetera. Um, this again, this is where the conversation started. I'm curious for you, Brigham, when Steve came to you with that, like these very basic things. Did you see that existed? How did you feel about it? Like just because that's where really things started, even though we're talking about it last. What were
Mm-hmm.
your just general thoughts on? Did it make sense you know, what we wanted with this piece?
Um, for yeah, me individually, it makes perfect sense. And this is an interesting conversation as a brand or a brand that makes a product or gear or clothing is I know I know marketing has been discussed on your podcast more than once, and it is a struggle for let's say the design department of a brand and the marketing department of a brand because their jobs are different, kind of, right? Like my job is to make a product that performs its intended purpose as well as possible. But but also part of my job that kind of comes after that is that hopefully we're a business, like hopefully that product sells well. So that is like still part of my job. Like I still want that product to succeed in terms of getting it out there, right? And getting it out there equals numbers. Um, However, a marketing department's job has no, they, they essentially do not care how well the product performs. Their job is to just get the product out there and get the numbers, right? And so the conversation of like, when I hear Steve tell me about these pants, it's like, yeah, makes perfect sense. I already can see like, oh, well, a marketing guy is going to be like, well, how's this so special? Like, what's so special about this? Um, and then the design guy is going to say, well, I mean, the performance is the first priority. So as long as they perform, that's what's special. But those two departments don't necessarily think the same way, and it's difficult for a brand to communicate something that one might look and be like, okay, this seems so simple. If it's simple, then it can't be great, right? Um, but Steve laughed because we're like-minded on this. Like,
Yeah.
but wait a second, it is great because it's so simple, because it just works. And that, I think for people that understand that, like that comes naturally. But for a marketing mind, that is like the antithesis of what they want, right? They want to be able to say, this is whiz bang. Look at this is the best fill in the blank because of this. And so I don't know. I'm kind of getting around your question or taking too long on your question, but yeah, when Steve outlined this to me, it's just like, yes, this is great. Like this is this makes perfect sense to me, because we don't need, people like us that think and hunt and do things the way that we do. Like they don't need or want all these things. They just want something that just works. And to me, like comfort is almost paramount when it comes to a simple pair of pants, because you can take two exactly made pants, put them in different fabric, and they will perform completely different because one maybe lacks stretch or is too heavy, or doesn't breathe well enough. And so I don't know. Those are some of the things going through my mind when Steve talked to me about this.
I'm glad you shared that because it is obviously a lot of individuals listening to this podcast who, maybe aren't involved in products and marketing and product development. They don't, that's probably all new thoughts to them, that alignment between design and marketing and performance and all that stuff. So I'm glad you shared all that.
Yeah, I mean,
And
like,
then,
so go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, I mean, you can feel free to roll back to it, but I did want to elaborate because this is definitely the case with this pant. What you just said on the same designed pant and a different fabric can have just radical, um, it changes everything about it. It's the same pant or even the same cut at times because we went through this and the specific fabric changes, not only feel, meaning next to skin, but also stretch. It felt like it changed fit at times, but in all reality, it was like the same cut. Yeah, it was pretty. This was one in particular for me that I was like, whoa, like getting the different prototypes, feeling the different fabrics, wearing different options. It was pretty mind blowing at how much it felt like the pant changed, even when the pant didn't change that much, but the fabric did.
I remember asking a couple times, like, "What'd you tweak about the pattern?" Like, nothing. Like, really? Like,
I
they're completely different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's bizarre. I mean, even with really simple things like a sun hoodie, you take the exact same pattern and that pattern, so it has numerically the exact same measurements, and you put it on with a different fabric, and you essentially have to redesign it. Uh, you have to change all the numbers. You have to change all the numbers that create that pattern, because it fits so different. Same thing, yeah, with the pants. I mean, it was the same with the mid layer. Yeah, that's a thing for sure.
Yeah, the pants were they were a hit right out of the gate. And then we tried a lot of stuff to make sure that it's like, well, would this be better? Would this wouldn't? And
Hmm.
I mean, we changed some stuff on cut. We changed how the hip belt, or sorry, how the integrated belt worked. All that was for the better. But it was, I don't know, there's a lot of excitement, I think, at least on my end. I think it was similar for you, Steve, of going back to the very first prototypes of the pants. I was like, holy cow, this is, I mean, out of the gate, this is from a napkin to being, I don't know, like 90 to 95% there with some minor tweaks. It was cool.
Yeah, I remember those words coming out of my mouth. Like, I think we can make this better, but they're already the best hunting pants I've ever used. And that was the initial prototypes. Yeah. When we did, I think we nailed it. I think we got that extra, went from 90% to 100%. I haven't hunted with the final version you sent, but just worn them around, done some hikes. Yeah, they just kick ass.
You guys did get the privilege of being guinea pigs for like 2 years after that. I mean, I yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, it was just I kind of like bracket things, so it's kind of like, well, let's. I wanted to be sure. I mean, because I wanted to be sure that if we made the pants with a slightly different fabric, if that wasn't a better choice, and it's a necessary bunch of steps to do, but yeah, I mean, it was great that we got off to such a good start, and um, what's nice about that is like you always know where you can come back to. So you can try all kinds of things, but like we knew we could always come back real close to that. And so, um, yeah, definitely went through many iterations of those pants for sure.
Yeah. I remember they were the original brown ones were so comfortable. and I think I got a pair to Boschma, and he's like, that's what I think we ended up going with a slightly heavier fabric, right? Because they were did not give the impression of durability. He's like, dude, I can't wear these on a hunt. I'm gonna destroy them. I was like, no, just trust me.
Hmm.
Like, and he's like, no, dude, they're backcountry pajamas, is what he called them. Like, they were so
Right.
light, they felt like pajamas in your house. But man, I mean, durability's been fantastic with those original ones, and but it's one of those the it's where I guess a person's impression of something, people would get it and go, these are too light, I'm going to tear these, and they would return them before they ever gave them a chance. So you kind of had to beef them up a little bit, but I felt like it was a good, yeah, where they ended up is probably just about right.
Yeah, it's definitely something, one of those instances where the performance was there, all the things we set out for were there, and then that concern about initial, like the user's like initial reaction to them, like could potentially be like underwhelming or not confidence inspiring. And so from there, it was really like, okay, now we need to find something that checks that off, but doesn't sacrifice anywhere else. Like
Hmm.
that's really what we set out the next two
Hmm.
years of doing, is like finding the fabric that was as comfortable, but also felt more substantial, so that it would alleviate those concerns.
Yeah, and it's funny because the it's such a, I mean, you obviously know the spec of the fabrics. There's probably a tiny little change, but it does
Hmm.
give the perception that, oh, these are going to be tougher. Yeah, I mean, probably a a gram per yard of fabric or something really small like that.
Dive into that, Brigham. What is the final, yeah, geek out, I guess, a little bit on the final spec of the fabric.
Yeah, I mean, well, one of the kind of requirements out the gate was like a four-way stretch nylon, so that it is a four-way stretch nylon. It's 175 gram per square meter fabric. It's called a double woven nylon. So the double weave just means it's, if you look at the outside and the inside, they look slightly different because they're woven kind of differently on the outside versus the inside. Um, and that kind of creates a little bit of body to the fabric, that it, if you handle it, it feels more substantial than it actually weighs. Um, and there's, you know, on a very small scale, there are performance benefits to that in terms of breathability of the pants, maybe even some moisture wicking ability. It's a little bit of loft, so that the wind, when the wind blows, it doesn't feel like, you know, it's kind of like the difference between a really thin, like saran wrap thin rain jacket versus like a really beefy four-layer rain jacket. When it rains and the wind blows, you feel that with the really thin rain jacket. With the thick rain jacket, you don't feel it. So kind of the same thing with the pants because of the double weave structure. So it feels more confidence inspiring, and it's really it's got great stretch. It's got good breathability. So yeah, that's the fabric that we're using.
And then features, we obviously have already mentioned this, but just a recap, and kind of a rundown on the pants in terms of pocket, obviously the hip zips, belt, all that good stuff. And just kind of, again, back up and give us a rundown on what this pant is.
Hmm. Um, so it's real close to what Steve, put down on the napkin metaphorically, but like it's your very standard two front uh pockets, a single cargo pocket on the right leg, two back pockets that just have a kind of a passive retention flap. There's not a zipper on them, and then it's got hip vents on each side, a zippered hip vent on each side. I will say, I mean, I did sneak in to the cargo pocket a very heavy cell phone pocket. I did that without Steve's consent, um, and just shipped them. I just put it in there and shipped it to you guys. Um, it did add about 8/10 of a gram, but it's
Steve felt
mesh.
it
It's
right
breathable
away
mesh.
before we even put
It's
them
a
on.
breathable mesh pocket, but I did sneak that in there. So um, yeah, that's the one of the things with the internal waist belt, was that those are they're very simple. It's a very common thing, but you really want to dial that in to have the thickness of the belt material. So the webbing we use for the belt, that took some looking to find the right thickness that's substantial enough so that the belt itself doesn't stretch, and that it will lock into place. And so also finding like the right tensioner that has a locking function. And those are also difficult to find that aren't too bulky. And so that was, and that I enjoy doing those things, like seeking out the right components. And so like with the internal belt, you really want to find a belt that the thickness will match the thickness of the actual exterior waistband of the pant, so that it doesn't stand out, right? So that it's not thicker in the middle of the waistband because of the belt than it is on, above it and below it. So we tried to match that. I think we did a good job. So it's a pretty consistent thickness, throughout the waistband, including the belt. But the cam lock tensioner works really well. Just this, you set it and forget it. That's kind of the idea is, if you need to adjust the belt, you can adjust it, clamp it down, and then not worry about retensioning it. That's a common issue with internal waist belts that don't have a locking function.
Yeah, and for me, that was feature number one. From being a pack designer and wanting the hip belt to perform the best of it can, like I don't want a single person out there hunting wearing a traditional belt that goes through the belt loops of a pant. They are only going to affect the comfort. Some are better than others. Some can be absolutely terrible. I mean, anything that's like is somewhat resembles a leather belt that's an eighth of an inch thick, that's stiff and rigid. You might be okay with lightweight loads, but the second you start packing meat, that's the last thing in the world I want. So, something stiff and rigid sandwiched in between your hip belt foam that's compressed as tight as it possibly can because you're pulling on the webbing to get the load onto your hips. And yeah, having a good internal belt was absolutely critical. And the execution of the final product was fantastic. I know we definitely went through some versions there with different buckles and different webbing, and the final ones so far have been great.
I guess final details in this one, Brigham, name and colors and rough price point and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so this is the Altura Dynamic Pant. We love product names and naming products. It's really fun. But
Sarcasm.
Colors, we're gonna have it's called Stone Brown. It's a very kind of like an earthy mud, light mud brown, kind of a little bit darker than a khaki. But yeah,
Nice.
so Stone Brown, and then kind of a dark olive. So it's a little darker of an olive green than you'll see in the mid layer and the puffy, and then gray. It's pretty similar shade of gray to the mid layer, but the actual dye, the color itself is it's different, but it's kind of that middle road of gray. Sizing, we're going to have 3 inseams, 30, 32, and 34. And then waists from 29 up to 40. And then we're going to have 1-inch increments from 32 to 36.
So 2-inch increments, and then that 32 to 36, you'll have a 33, a 34, or 35. Nice.
Yeah. So really the only 2-inch increments are from honestly 30 to 32, and then 36, 38, 40.
Did the inseams go across all those options?
There may be a couple waist sizes that, like the 29s, we might not do
Like a 34.
in the 34.
Yeah, makes sense.
There are a couple oddballs left out, but
Is that pretty
Yeah.
normal for you guys, like with pants? Because I mean, that's a lot. You start doing the math, that's a lot of SKUs.
Oh, dude. Yeah, it's a ton. Um, we yeah we we try to be very accommodating, try to fit as many in, and it's it's not great for us honestly because there's some sizes that will just sit on the shelf for a long time, and we probably could have sold, you know, 10 of another size in that same amount of time or 50 in the same
Hmm.
amount of time. But we do, we try to help a lot of people out in terms of sizing.
Rough price point?
Probably around on the low end, like low 100s, maybe 107, 110, up to like 125, 130. Um, yeah, I wish I had them more narrowed down at this point, but we're just not quite there yet on the final price.
Yeah.
Um,
It gives a ballpark
so
for people to know. Yeah, I think it's good.
yeah, yeah, I don't think there's no way they're going to be more than 130. Um, like so, just you can not worry about that. So somewhere between, yeah, again, 108 to under 130.
Well, obviously we covered a lot. We went fairly in depth. I know we could even go way more nerdery because we've had those conversations, Brigham, then you love all of the details, which I appreciate. Before recapping next steps and all that for listeners, is there anything else like you feel like we didn't touch, missed, etc.? I mean, just so people know, we've talked about 2 years. There's a lot of we're leaving out in terms of actual details on what we've tried and tested and all that.
Yeah.
So there's more that could be said for sure. But I also want to make sure we hit what you feel is important and relevant for people listening.
Yeah. I think one thing I would like to touch on is you mentioned it really kind of at the beginning. We did have in 2024, we did have the help of a lot more guys testing for us. Um, and that was awesome. Like that was incredibly helpful, valuable. It was validating for a lot of things and confirming for a lot of things, but it also helped refine um, the things that influenced the final product. So it I don't know, Steve. It was probably around a dozen guys that we had um, testing a lot of samples for us, aside from us, right? Um,
Gosh, I
and
think it
this
might have
it
been more than that.
could have
Yeah.
been, yeah. And it was, and to give the listeners some context, like um, in these dozen plus guys, I mean, it was like hundreds of days of field time, like um, like actual hunt time, not counting training hikes and backpacking trips or just whatever they're going out and doing. I mean, I kind of just from talking to everybody personally that did, all your Alaska hunts. I mean, it was like 75, close to 80 hunt days, not counting days waiting for planes, between the amount of guys on the hunts and the days hunting in Alaska. Um, yeah, so chunk of days in Alaska and then 3 or 4 times that amount of days of other hunting time between all those guys. And it was great, man. And I will say, I want to give those guys a lot of credit as well in terms of being really good with feedback. There were a bunch of guys that I'm really glad took advantage of having my phone number and calling me or texting me. Some guys were texting me or calling me from the mountain, and it's incredibly valuable and appreciated, and it really did influence a lot of kind of final tweaks. So um, definitely grateful for those guys as well as you, and then but that is also part of the design process. So that's definitely worth mentioning.
The testing outside of, I mean, we do this with Exos. Like we do internal testing, get a product 90% there, and then grow that out, and then the feedback and just testing durability because there's just so many scenarios that like you might not ever, something might fail, but you might not ever think to put it through that scenario or someone else does. It's just always so beneficial to do that stage, which is going back to like industry stuff is very uncommon. A lot of
Yeah.
people that you get like a couple show sample or factory samples and you try them on a guy or two and yep, all right, that's good. Let's roll with it. And that's why you see products with a lot of weird, like, why is this? Why is the sizing off? Why is this pocket shaped this way or not
Hmm.
work or function? And yeah, that long prototyping process and really refining and dialing in a product. And again, like you said, the marketing guys don't like it because it's there's not something new and exciting. But the goal, at least from my perspective, working with you guys, is like let's just get this right now, and then these shouldn't have to change for 5 years, unless there's
Yeah.
just some slight tweak and like, oh, we could get this a little better. But you're talking subtle little changes. It's just get it right, keep it simple. It's going to perform. Obviously, you've done a great job keeping these affordable for people. Like, I mean, those pants at $110, $120, you're 150 to 200 for a comparable pant from another hunting company. I mean, everything's really well priced. Yeah, these should crush. Take a little time to get the word out, but once people start using them in the field and getting feedback, yeah, I'm very optimistic, hopeful that you guys will be very happy with where the sales are at this with this stuff.
Yeah. It's been a it's been a really cool process, enjoyable. Um, it always feels good to kind of move on to that real consumer experience phase of
Hmm.
these are now for sale. Everybody in the world can get these if they want them, and that's always fun and exciting to get to that point and let the product kind of speak for itself. And and honestly, it's just like it's a bit of a relief at that point. So yeah, definitely excited about it.
Well, that is a wrap for now. Again, more to come. The best way to make sure you get updates on the clothing is sign up for the email notifications. There's a link for that in the show description. I believe you'll also get a discount when those items launch as well. As always, if you are enjoying the show, it does help us a ton if you could just leave a rating or a review in whatever podcast app you are using, or just share the show directly with a friend who may enjoy it or benefit from it. And if you have any questions for us, send an email to podcast@exomountaingear.com. It'd be good to hear from you. And finally, if you haven't yet, be sure to also hit subscribe or follow in your podcast app so that you receive future episodes automatically. And we'll talk to you soon.